Joining us now is documentary filmmaker Michael Moore, whose latest film, Capitalism, a Love Story, came out on DVD and Blu-ray last week. Michael, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you being here. The Dodd bill...
Thanks for having me here, and sorry, it's a sad night for Keith.
It is. It's a difficult night here. The Dodd bill came out today. There's been a lot of talk about it ramping up to this. You've been following this closely. What we know about it now, how would you assess the Dodd bill?
I think it's a very weak bill. I mean, I think that what Senator Dodd just said there isn't really true. That doesn't mean that there will never be another too big to fail again. It doesn't have as its central core the so-called Volcker rule, Paul Volcker, where basically you have a limit on what these banks can do, what they can have, what they can trade. This doesn't really cover any of that. Plus, the so-called Consumer Protection Agency that's in it is going to be housed at the Fed.
Yeah. You'll know where to find it.
Okay.
You know exactly where to go.
And the Fed will have, they'll have one of the board members will be someone from the Fed. I mean, come on. What part of this doesn't Dodd and some of the Democrats, what don't they get? The American people want this fixed. We lost billions of dollars. They brought down the economy of this country. The question, you know, and he said today, he says, well, we don't want to punish Wall Street. Yes, we do. Yes, it's exactly what we need to do, because if we don't do it, they won't do anything to change. I mean, unless there's a stick that says, look, if you steal money from the American people, if you lose the pension money of the workers of this country, you're going to have a price to pay for this. Instead, what we did was we wrote them more checks and said, here, thanks for stealing the money. Take some more. I mean, it's absolutely the wrong message to send to a thief. And
the notion, the principle, if we can call it a principle, of too big to fail, was never written into U.S. law anywhere. That was just the collective judgment of the wise men in Washington as these failures started to crop up on Wall Street, and they just looked at it and said, that one's too big to fail, that one isn't. Right. I mean, so if the Congress wants to say to us today, too big to fail won't happen again because, you know, we're not writing it into law. Well, it was never written into law.
Right.
What's to prevent that from happening again?
Listen, here's the bottom line. There were no bank disasters, not one, between World War II and the 1980s. And as soon as Ronald Reagan went in there and the Republicans and Reagan took away the regulations, started chipping away at them, we had the savings and loans crisis at the end of the 80s. We had the hedge fund meltdown in the late 90s. And now we've had the crash of 08. And when Dodd says, you know, this isn't to say that there won't be other disasters, it wasn't his word, but other problems in the future, he's admitting that this could very well happen again on some level. And that this doesn't really, I agree with Paul Krugman, what he said in the New York Times a couple weeks ago, that it might be better actually not to pass this bill than to pass a bill that gives all of us the sense of, oh, it's all okay now, we're all safe. That to create that kind of delusion may do more harm and may not do what we need to do, which is to prevent the next crash from occurring, which is going to occur because they're back to dealing with derivatives and credit default swaps and all the crazy gambling that they were doing before. They're still doing it and giving themselves huge bonuses with our tax dollars. It's you know, I was thinking earlier today, Senator Dodd, I mean, he's not ready for re-election. He could go out with repairing his legacy, go out in blazing colors on the side of the people. You know, if he would actually produce something. Now, the White House has said they're going to try and strengthen the bill. I hope that happens. It'll only happen, though, if people make their voices heard.
But here's Dodd's problem. I will speak to you as a Senate institutionalist, having worked there myself. Back when Richard Shelby was a Democrat. That's how long ago it was. Richard Shelby, who's now the leading Republican on the Banking Committee, said today, you know, we agree with Chris Dodd on about 80% of this stuff. Yeah. Which in the old days used to be where the compromise existed. But now what it sounds like to me is, Chris, we only agree with you on 80% of it. Right. Once we agree with you on 100% of it, we'll give you maybe 2 or 3 Republican votes. Right. But
once you turn it into a Republican bill.
But Dodd has that 60-vote problem. He has to get, to get anything to pass, he's got to get over the 60-vote hurdle in the Senate, which is why he's been trying to negotiate with Republicans. How can he get there from where he's standing now.
And that's the way you would look at it as an insider.
Right.
Okay, now speaking
That's
from...
the hack speaking.
No. Now the citizens...
Citizen.
What the citizens have to do is, people of Maine and Connecticut, these are the three votes. These people need to do what's right for the American people. And so there needs to be huge citizen pressure on the two senators in Maine, the rogue senator in Connecticut, and that's how we're going to have that. But again, we're back playing their ball game by their rules, talking about 60 votes. It's 50 plus the Vice President of the United States is 51. We only need 50. That's all we need. I'm sure they have that. And if they want to filibuster, you know what? Let them filibuster. Call their bluff. Make them stand there for 24 days, reading from the phone book or doing whatever, standing up to support the banks and Wall Street and the people that stole the money from the American people. Let them, I want to see that, please.
Well,
let them filibuster for 24 days.
Sadly.
They won't get through 24 hours before the switchboards will light up and the American people will say, that's the end of that.
The modern version of filibuster is to simply offer an endless stream of amendments so that they never have to get themselves into that Jimmy Stewart moment.
Let them keep doing that. Let them keep doing that then. Let's see how many days they get to get away with that. You know, this is where Clinton, really where things turned after Newt took over, the Republicans took over in '94. You know, when Clinton finally stood up to them, when they tried to shut down the federal government, and Clinton called their bluff and he said, okay, we'll shut it down. That's what you want to do? Let's see what the American people think when the Social Security checks don't show up on the 3rd of the month.
Right.
That's what he did, and the American people got behind Clinton, and the Republicans, their year-long party was over.
Michael Moore, stand by if you can. We're going to switch topics, and we're going to healthcare when we come back.